have returned features very much.
This is a slideshow about my grandmother, Mary Bolling Turner Smith, and I'm doing this for her grandchildren and great-grandchildren who never got to know her. She died very tragically early in her life. And a little caveat here. If I shed a tear at this, they pay no attention to me, I will keep right on talking, but I cannot guarantee that that is not going to happen. So, okay, next slide. These are her parents, Robert Fauntleroy Turner and his second wife, Sarah Pocahontas Meredith. Robert Fauntleroy Turner's first wife, Mary West Course, had died after she had 2 children, Edward Shirley Turner Sr. and Margaret Fitzhugh Turner. Next slide. And this is Westwood, where all 3 of the children were born and where they all lived until the untimely death of Robert, their father. On the left, Mary's baby and the little 3-year-old picture. The picture on the right actually was a beautiful little, it was in a little red velvet frame, and it sat on the table in my house when I was growing up. Probably some of her other grandchildren had the same picture in their house.
I have it too.
Yes, it's beautiful, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Next slide. After her father died, her 2 older siblings, Ned and Malberetta, also known as Brother and Mac, went to live with Nathan Mulgrew Turner at Kinloch, while Mary and her mother, who actually went to a boarding house in York, Pennsylvania, run by Mrs. Latimer Small. And in this picture, in the middle, in the back, the woman is Pocahontas Meredith, my great-grandmother, and the little child in the front is my grandmother. The others are members of Mrs. Latimer Small, I think is on the top left in the back. And the other 2 pictures were just taken in the same time period. They were labeled York, Pennsylvania. So next slide. But after 2 years in York, Pennsylvania, she did come back to Virginia. But her mother died when she was 11 years old. Then she went to live with her mother's sister, who happened to be married to my grandfather's uncle. So we have Archibald and Mary married, and their last name is Smith. But of course, the 2, Archie and Mary, the next generation, didn't meet till several years later. So she did live in Markham, Virginia, with her aunt and uncle, Archibald McGill Smith, and his wife. And she spent her school years actually at Winchester Female Institute, where her uncle, Archibald McGill Smith, was the headmaster. So the picture on the left with the inscription on the back, I don't have any idea who Precious Piggy was, but evidently it was somebody in high school that she was quite enamored with. And the picture on the right was taken during that same time period. Next slide. These pictures are an absolute treasure. The 4 pictures on the right, and it's about 4 inches long, and I just found it in all the pictures and things that my mother had saved, and it's in terrible shape. And I did manage to separate it and enhance it to the best of my ability. I'd like to send it for further enhancement, but those pictures were taken the day that Archie and Mary met at the wedding of Mary Tristan Smith, who was their mutual first cousin, because Archie had come from Louisiana back to Virginia for the wedding of his first cousin, and Mary happened to be also first cousin to the bride. So they met that day, and I think these pictures are a treasure to have them, the same day that they met. Next slide. Now, Mary lived in a number of different places after she finished school. When she after she finished at Winchester Female Institute, then she stayed in Markham, Virginia with the Smith family, which is her aunt. But from there, she moved a number of different places, and she had a home, I guess, really, but she had so many wonderful cousins who would say, "Come stay here for a little bit." So she would move there for a little bit, and then a week or so later, she'd be somewhere else. A couple of weeks after that, somewhere else. And throughout her letters, I have numerous letters that she wrote. Throughout her letters, the only thing that was constant was, "I don't like moving around because I can't get my mail." So the letters from Archie that she had just met, that was her primary concern. She wanted to get her mail from Archie. So, next slide. And I thought this would be interesting. Mary had absolutely beautiful stationery that in the upper left-hand corner, you can see there's the Turner crest is on actually two of the sheets up there. This is something that Archie had made for her. He sent a wax seal. She sent a wax seal back to New Orleans, and so he had this stationery made for her. And then also Bellevue in Markham, Virginia, where the Smith family lived, they had their own stationery. And obviously there's the Kinloch stationery, and Westwood, the Plains. And then the monogram stationery, the second on the left, was something that Archie had made for her. It's her initials intertwined into a monogram. Next slide. And I wanted to give a sample of Archie's stationery too, because it's absolutely beautiful, all the things that the letters were written on. The Bowie Lumber Company in Bowie, Louisiana was his first job. So on the right is a sample of his stationery. It's a big, huge, magnificent, gorgeous looking paper. And then in the upper left-hand corner, the Alluvial City Land Company. Evidently at one point he was involved with that. Then the second down is his CPA stationery, because he was a certified public accountant in Louisiana. And below that, his career was as state superintendent of public funds in Louisiana. So that is his stationery that he used. Okay, next slide. Throughout all of her letters, her closest friends, which she mentions constantly, were actually her cousins. The Smith family that I mentioned in Markham, Virginia, and then Sadie Carter Stewart, Frida Broad Chevrolet, who was a first cousin by adoption, Mary DeButts Carter Foster, Frances Turner Knox, and her sister Ellen Turner, and her beloved brother and sister, Mac and brother. She was always talking about them, loving them. Next slide. This is the three siblings. Mary on the right, Edward Shirley Turner, and Sr. in the middle. I think I said Edward Carter Turner. I'm so sorry. It's Edward Shirley Turner in the middle, Sr. And Margaretta Fitzhugh Turner on the left. Dear Aunt Mac, who took care of everybody, was a saint.
Oh, that's it.
Next slide. And then since she had no parents, she had absolutely wonderful parent figures everywhere. You can tell by her letters, like her Aunt Jane Peter Turner, another Aunt Mary Beverly Turner at Palmerstone, Nathan Lovebird Turner, Uncle Love, and her Aunt and Uncle Mary Bolling Meredith and Archibald McGill Smith, and her future mother-in-law, Catherine Sterling Smith, who was in Louisiana. And then she had some friends, Florence and Shield McCandlish. She mentions them all the time and stays with them. To the best of my knowledge, they were friends, but she was very, very fond of them. Next slide. Now, this is my best educated guess, and I'm looking for clues in the picture. This is obviously Mary in the individual picture, and on the right, and sitting on the bench. I think this is her cousin, Ruby Jacqueline Smith, who lived at Markham, Virginia, in Bellevue. Next slide. And these pictures were taken the same day. Again, this is Mary on the right. And to the best of my ability, trying to look for clues, I think this is Pocahontas Meredith Smith on the left. Charles McGill Smith, who was in the letters, the last of John's presentation, and Ruby Smith and Mary Three Smith, I think. Time will tell, really. But nothing else makes sense. Next picture. Now, I do have some excerpts from letters that she wrote from various cousins' homes, and I'd just like to read a little bit of those. These were written from the home of Will and Sadie Stewart, dated November 17th, 1903. Sadie, she writes all these to Archie. They're desperately in love with each other after meeting for 1 week. Sadie, Mrs. Stewart, married a man who, not rich, has a plenty to give her everything she could possibly want, and is lovely to all of her relatives. I'm one of his favorites, and they both make me feel as if this were my home. They want me to stay here until after Christmas. November 27th, 1903. You should have seen me yesterday setting rabbit traps all afternoon for my little cousin Sadie, who was 10 years old at the time. Poor little girl, she's been setting them there for 2 years and has never caught a rabbit. December the 1st, 1903. I've just gotten back from a long drive with little Sadie, who went to Catonsville, about 4 miles from here, to see a friend of mine, and took her with us for a nice long drive. I read little Sadie about the rabbit. Evidently, Archie said a story, and she was very much interested. And then later on in this letter, Will Stewart said to his wife, "What on earth is Mr. Archie Smith writing to Mary so much for? I never saw such correspondence in my life. I can't imagine what that old man has to say to her. Isn't that a joke? He thinks you're Uncle Archie." This is what happens in a family where everybody has the same name. So evidently, Will, where she was staying, thought all these wonderful letters from Archie Smith was from her uncle, Archie Smith, but actually they were from her future husband, wonderful boyfriend, Archie Smith in Louisiana. So Archie writes back, dated December the 8th, 1903. I have had several good laughs over your letter. Mr. Stewart was badly fooled. Tell him that he must not forget that I am the only Archie. Okay, next slide. This, I believe, well, it's Mary on the right, and I think these pictures were taken the same day as the others. I'm 99% certain this is Pocahontas Bolling Smith Todd, because in one of her letters she writes about Mr. Todd having taken pictures that day. And these were taken in a place called Old Wildcat Hollow. I don't know if anybody knows where that is. But next slide. And then I have some excerpts from letters that she wrote from Aunt Janie and Uncle Edward's house in Warrenton, dated September the 9th, 1904. Well, here I am back at Warrenton. I expect you think I'm the most impossible person to keep track of we've ever had to deal with. I'll be mighty glad when I'm settled at Honduras for the winter, Honduras Plantation in Homer, Louisiana, where Archie was going to take her, to stay for the winter with once again, your mutual first cousin who owned that house. For it is so tiresome to have to pick up and change your abiding place every 2 weeks, and then I could never get my mail regularly. That's the only thing she was concerned about. Altogether, I'm pretty weary of it. Isabel Carter was married yesterday afternoon at 5 o'clock. It was a very pretty wedding, and the church was crowded. We all had lots of fun at the reception. I saw people I hadn't seen for years. Just before the bride and groom started for the depot, when they were all throwing rice at each other, someone spoke up and said that as I would surely be the next bride, I ought to have some. So every man and girl there immediately turned on me and simply showered it upon me. I tried to escape, but one of my numerous first cousins caught me and would not let me move. I never did have such a terrible time. You certainly should have been there to get your share. Then later on in the letter, Mr. Foster and Mary were asking about you and sent their love. September 30th, 1904. I drove to the Plains and back this morning. My cousin Nina Carter went off on the train and I drove her up. I went to Glenville and stayed about an hour. No one was at home but Mr. Foster. And we had a nice long talk on various topics. He is surely a splendid man and has been everything to me. May the 2nd, 1905. I've just gotten back from the Plains and I did have such a good time. Francis and Ellen spent the day here Monday and Mac and I went back with them and spent the night. We just got here a few hours ago. We spent last night at Palmerstone. This morning we went to see Aunt Eliza Marshall for a little while and from there to Montrose. Then we went back to Aunt Mary's to dinner, after dinner to Glenville for just a few minutes. Then from there on home. Didn't we have a lot of visits in such a short while? At this point they are engaged. Francis and Elwin are all excited over the wedding. They think and talk of nothing else. They're crazy to have a night wedding. And I think for some reason that would be nicer. But there's no train leaving the Plains later than 7 o'clock. So we would not want to stay there until the next morning. So I'm afraid we will have to give up the night wedding and have it at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. Can you imagine today's society, a wedding at 5 o'clock? And then a reception, which was across the street at Glenville, and getting on the train at 7. But that is what we did. Next one. The second winter was spent at the home of her cousin and Archie's cousin in Louisiana. This is a picture that was taken during that time period. This is her future mother-in-law, Catherine Sterling Smith. At this point, Archie's father had died. Next slide. These are just two beautiful pictures that were taken of her. I'm sure all of her grandchildren have seen the one on the left. I'm not sure about the one on the right, but they are absolutely beautiful. Next slide. She loved to ride horses, as evidenced by her letters. She also loved to ice skate, too, which I wouldn't have known if I hadn't found that in the letters. The picture on the right, if anybody has any clue, it's always been a mystery to me. It looks like she's wearing some sort of sweater that's kind of sprung out, but the profile is a beautiful picture, so I did want to include that. Next slide. And then I have some excerpts from letters that she wrote at Palmerstone. This is the last slide of excerpts of letters, except toward the end. July 7th, 1904. I'm going to the Plains next Tuesday, the 11th, so I shall expect you to report at headquarters. Archie's coming up to visit very soon after you arrive in Virginia. I've just had a letter from Frances Turner in which she says to tell you that she'd be delighted to see you. She is Aunt Mary Turner's youngest daughter. There are only 3 in the family, Aunt Mary, Frances, and Elwin. They are both lovely girls, and I want you to like them. Elwin is an awful tease, and I expect both you and I will catch it, but I don't think we will mind. July 29th, 1904. Evidently, Archie had sent some books from Louisiana. Elwin has fallen in love with the hero in lavender and old lace, and interrupts me every 5 minutes telling me of his attractions. The girls were out, but now they're back, and Elwin is telling me what she thinks I should say in this letter. So don't wonder if it's rather disconnected. I have written to many of my friends and relatives now announcing the news of their engagement. And I'm glad to say I wrote 4 yesterday. Don't you think I'm industrious? On July 30th, 1904, we're all going to a musical tonight at Cousin Brad Beverly's. I guess that was at Avenel. He lives about 10 miles from here. The drive in the moonlight will be lovely. Do you remember the tournament the Glenville children were talking about when we were there? Well, it came off yesterday, and little Mary Foster was crowned queen. Wasn't that fine? Loughborough Turner crowned her. September 26, 1904. This letter was written from Palmerston, but it was about her recent stay at Bullock. I have so much love for you from all my relatives that I'm afraid this letter won't hold it all. First of all, Uncle Love sends his love and says if he had known how nearly related he was going to be to you, he would have taken a better look at you. I want you to know that he is the one who was congratulating Charlie in the last, in the other slides. He was congratulating Charlie thinking it was you. I want you to know that I think he is as near perfection as any man in this world. He is a Mason, too, and I expect you two would be very congenial. Montrose is where we went the first Sunday you were here, where cousins Mitty, Randolph, and Benny lived. You saw Randolph, but the others were away. Cousin Mitty sends her love and says to tell you that she knew your father well and was devoted to him. She talked to me a long time about him. She said he was one of the most attractive young men she ever knew. She's crazy to see you, and that she's so glad you and I are going to make a match. I showed her your picture, and she thinks you look very much like her brother, Bishop Randolph. October 17, 1905. We're having a picnic out in the woods, just the family, no strangers. We got lunch, and Francis and I have walked ourselves almost to death looking for chestnuts. I'm perfectly delighted to hear about the electric lights. They were building a house in Louisiana, and it was going to have electric lights in it. I'm simply crazy to see the house. I hope Mr. Palfrey, who was in Louisiana where she ordered the invitations, will send them this week. She ordered 1,000 invitations, 1,000 wedding invitations. And a month before the wedding, she had not yet gotten them. So anyway, things were considerably different 100 years ago with regard to weddings. Charlie wants to know what kind of gloves and tie to get. They ought to be gray, or not. Do you think you could get here the Monday before the wedding? You know, the license will have to be gotten from Warrenton, and that's a good day's trip from the plains. Aunt Mary told me to tell you that she wants you to stay at Cornerstone during the wedding. But I told her I thought Brother wanted you and the best man at Kinloch. Aunt Mary's going to have all the bridesmaids and some of the ushers. Sadie Stewart, her family, and Mac and the bride will be at Glenville. The groom can come over to see us sometime if he behaves himself. Next slide. And the wedding did take place in the old Christ Church here, and the reception was across the street at Glenville. Next slide. I think these are engagement and wedding dresses. If any of my cousins know otherwise, I cannot find anything in their writings except that she went shopping in Washington, D.C., a good bit right before the wedding. But these are beautiful enough dresses to be that, so that's what we think. Next picture. And then, of course, her calling card. Archie was always very concerned about stationery and calling cards and whatnot, but he had these made for her. Next slide. And then along come the children, 4 children. Pocahontas Meredith Smith, Charles McGill Smith, Catherine Sterling Smith, and Archibald McGill Smith, Jr. My mother was Catherine, but she told me that when she was 8 years old, she was playing in the backyard, and all of a sudden her father came to her and said, "Come see your new baby brother." And so she went in the house, and there was Archie, and that was the absolute first indication she had had that there was any baby coming. Apparently, you just didn't discuss such things with children before. She had no idea of pregnancy or anything like that, so just come see your new baby brother. So she was thrilled, really. So next slide.
Victorians. They were Victorian.
And this is a photograph of Archie and Mary and baby Pokey. And I think it's absolutely beautiful. Next slide. These pictures are a tremendous find. I have a whole box of negatives. And I was going through the negatives and turning them into positives. And I couldn't tell from the negatives who this was. when these pictures popped up, I jumped out of my skin. That is Archie on the left. In the left picture, that's Archie and our dear Aunt Mac, who is sister, to Mary, and baby Pokey. And of course, the other picture has Mary in it. They're dressed beautifully. I mean, they almost look like they're in a movie. Really, it's absolutely gorgeous. I think this is Harper's Ferry, West Virginia, who just kind of surmised from the background. But I've never seen these in print before, and I'm so glad I found this negatives, really. So, next slide. These pictures, the one on the right, that's Glenville in the back. Mary and baby Pokey are wearing the same clothes. I'm assuming the one on the left was taken also in the front lawn of Glenville. They did come back from Louisiana for Pokey to be baptized at Kinloch. So I think this was probably the summer of 1907. And the people in the picture on the left, notice the photographer cut off the head of the two men standing in the back. So that's very unfortunate. I'm still kind of working on exactly who the people are, but I do know Mary and baby Pokey. So next slide. And once again, these are photographs of Mary with Pokey. I think I have more pictures of Mary with Pokey because Pokey didn't have any descendants. So the pictures kind of came, with Mary's other pictures. The picture on the left is Mary, and the woman holding baby Pokey in the middle is unidentified. The picture on the right is my great-grandmother's sister, Mary Bolling Meredith, who was the aunt that Mary lived with. And then the picture on the right is Mary and Pokey. And they look like they're on some kind of ship somewhere, but I'm not sure. Next slide. I just have a lot of pictures here because so many, I've not been seen before. Mary during the same time for Mary. And I'm not sure the house in the back, but maybe one of y'all can figure that out. Next slide. And again, just pictures of Mary with Pokey. Next slide. And again, during the same time, Mary. My aunt, her is Meredith Smith. In her 30s, she actually changed her name legally to Constance Conant Smith. But I never heard anybody call her Constance. I always called her Pokey. So, next slide. And this is an interesting picture. This is Mary in the background, obviously. Pokey in the front. The other children are Smith grandchildren. And this was taken in Franklin, Louisiana. And by clues in the picture, I think I have everybody identified. I think this was taken in the summer of 1909. And I think she's pregnant with Charles here, which is really interesting because you don't usually see pictures of that, but the clues in other newspaper articles and whatnot, I believe that's what this is. Next slide. And here is Mary with baby Charles on the right, and another picture that was obviously taken the same day, but beautiful pictures. Next slide. And more pictures of Mary with Pokey and Charles. I have not known that. Thank you very much, Ted. That's good. I'll make note of that. Thank you. Next slide. Now this picture was also negative. And when I turned it into a positive, I was so amused because that's Charles on the left, Pokey, but look at the grip that my grandmother has on my mother's arm. There's a expression on my mother's face. It must have been one of those days, really. So once again, it was a negative. I've never seen this picture before. So next one. And then the travels. Mary with Charles and Archie. Now, I don't know who took these pictures. Must have been somebody traveling with them, but I don't know. But just stopping along the road. Yes. Well, that was, the border between Virginia and North Carolina. Yes, the roads were like that. Okay, next one. They took a trip to the Grand Canyon. This is a magnificent picture I found in a letter. And it's really gorgeous. Pokey and Archie, I don't know where the other two were, but they had a wonderful trip. Next slide. And then you all have seen these pictures before. I'm not sure, we think it's 1918. That's about right, I think, yes. Yes, with Mary driving and her cousin Alexander Scott Turner, and Charles in the back, and her mother in the front with the big bow ribbon that you can see somewhere. But, next slide. The picture on the left was really badly damaged, but the expression of my grandmother's face, I think, is absolutely just charming. I really do. She's obviously very enthralled with whoever she's talking to, and I don't know who it is. And then the picture on the right is just another picture of her during this time period. Next slide. This is just another family picture with the Berkeley family. Mary and Sarah Berkeley were third cousins. This is through my, not through the Turners, but through the Merediths, my great-grandmother. And that's my mother in the back right, and Charles and Archie the front left. Next picture, next slide. And just some beautiful studio pictures of her. Next slide. And then as she got older later on, the picture on the left of my grandparents together, that's one of the, I really haven't seen another one of the two of them together. They're few and far between, really. So, and then the two pictures on the right, they were on a ship somewhere, or a boat somewhere. And the older woman is her sister-in-law, my great-uncle John's wife, Aunt Leora Smith. Next slide. Now this is a far cry from the 1905 long skirts, but evidently they were having a lovely outing at the beach. Probably this was on the Gulf Coast somewhere. So next slide. And once again, just beautiful pictures of her. The one on the right, I'm really kind of pleased with, if I say so myself. It was badly damaged, and I managed to separate the background from the picture of her herself, and I thought it turned out really well, really. But no, she's not smiling in any of them. No. Next slide. And just more pictures of her, just because so many of us haven't seen all these pictures. Next slide. This picture blows my mind. I didn't know she had this in her. How could anybody with such a pretty face get her face into such contortion? But evidently this was something she did from time to time. So next slide. And just more pictures of random things. The other people are unidentified, but more pictures. Next slide. And the picture on the left, that's my mother on the right. The other people are unidentified. The picture on the right, that's my grandmother with mother together. I wish I knew these two young women. They keep showing up in different pictures. I don't know who they are. Next slide. And once again, this is a negative. The ones that were negatives that are turned into positives, I can see how they weren't printed because all the way over on the left is my grandmother, and on the right is my grandfather. Look at their expressions. They are clearly furious with each other over something. And I don't know who the two women in the middle are, but it's just a very interesting. And once again, it's a negative. So, next slide. Just more pictures of Mary. The one in the middle, I think, is beautiful. I don't know how she managed to perch on that rock, but she did. Next slide. And then a group picture. This is by Westwood. Mary with her beloved sister, Mac, and Archie, and cousin Shirley, Ted's father, and unidentified, sitting in the chair with the bushes on his head. I can't quite figure that one out. Next slide. Evidently, they drove the car onto the beach. I think this is probably along the Gulf Coast, but I think it's a hauntingly beautiful picture of her. Next slide. Does anyone recognize the second person from the left? Because I do not know who that is, and the child is standing behind my grandmother.
That's at Westwood, isn't it? Ted?
I can't place it.
I think it is because I have a colored,
It's what now?
I have a colored picture that's very much similar to this, but it's Mary and Aunt Mac.
Oh, I
and their
that one's
dog.
coming up. Yes,
Yeah.
but I don't know who the second person is from the left.
I mean, the rocking chair was in the picture at
Oh.
Westwood, I think. We'll see when you get to it.
I can't place it.
Yeah, the next slide. Just a couple more beautiful pictures of her. But she doesn't smile. Next slide. Even though I think she was a very happy person. Really. And again, the one on the left was a negative that I found. So, next slide. And then here's this classic picture of all of her grandchildren. I've always had in their homes. Mary with her beloved sister, Mac, and the dog, whose name I think was Nash. I'm not absolutely certain. Does anybody know? Anyway, next slide. And this is a newspaper article in the Times-Picayune, just about where Mary was featured with our cousin Robert E. Lee. And then, of course, there's Edward Carter Turner's picture there.
That's where your names come from.
Next slide. Okay, I'm going to read a little bit of these few letters from the last part of her life. She had come back to Virginia because she wanted to buy a little house that she was going to call Sterling. It was very close to Palmerstone. And April 27, 1939, she's talking about what a beautiful little place this is. 4 springs on the place, beautiful hills where the view is perfect, a good little orchard, apples and 20 peach trees, pears, walnuts, pines, and cedar trees. Just one beautiful hill after another with the most gorgeous views, and at least 2 wonderful building sites. Okay, fair enough. Where the view is perfect. If we get it, there will be room, I'm sorry, for all of our children to build cottages for themselves, and to have a great little strip of land to go with it. Aunt Max says she might move to build a little house near us. I don't believe I could ever find a place I like better if I searched the country. April 30th, 1939, the farm sale is hanging until the title is verified. Some records are missing, and this phone is so beautiful it would be heaven to have it. It's 1 mile through the woods from Palmsville. Sorry. May 3rd, 1939. I am going to do this. The lawyer's progressing well with the title. The name Sterling will suit me exactly, which was the name of the little house that she wanted to name it. June 15th, 1939, to my mother in Baton Rouge. Delighted and excited for your engagement. My parents had just gotten engaged. So glad you're coming up. Archie and Charles are cutting weeds and grass in the yard today. By Monday, we'll actually be working on the house. All the relatives congregate over here. We had 3 carfuls. June 28th. All the Smith family spent the day at Sterling yesterday. Archie and Charles were masking like Turks, cutting the grass. My garden has currant bushes with currants and quinces, enough to make preserves for an army, and lots of grapes on the vine, a few peaches and pears, and I want to make a rock garden. July 12th, 1939. We will patch up the roof, and with a few rooms complete. I'm okay. I think we can live it next summer. I'm going to do this. And then she wrote a letter July 13th, 1939 to her friends in New Orleans. Gorgeous black walnut trees. She's going to make jelly and call it Sterling jelly. And then all my relatives have been so lovely. Cars full of them and others riding horses come by to sit with me every day. You cannot imagine the joy it gives me to see what a lovely welcome they have given me. I'm sorry, everybody. I didn't think I would cry till the end. Sorry. We're almost at the end. What a lovely welcome they have given me, and I'm really happy to have them come here. Richard Turner is putting in my plumbing, and as my general advisor, we've had such good times together. July 15th. We're going to a big dance at Glenville tonight. Catherine and I. We're just going to look on. My new addition is going to be so nice. July 18th. Catherine went to New York Sunday night with Charles to do her shopping. I think when she's ready to go home, I may go with her. This is the last letter. July 29th, 1939 to Archie. I will let you know how things progress and when to look for us. July 28th, they started driving home. July 29th, there was an automobile accident in Montgomery, Alabama. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm breaking. I'm sorry. Automobile accident in Montgomery, Alabama. My mother was driving and my grandmother was killed. She was thrown out of the car and she died a few hours later in hospital. The car malfunctioned. That's what I have always been told. And I've done research, and I recently have, just in the last couple of weeks, found, which I'll share with my cousins if you want, an eyewitness account to the accident, which actually completely confirmed that it was a total malfunction of the car, no fault of my mother. However, she really fully recovered from it. So, I guess we can go on to the next slide. That is a picture of my grandfather, taken a year or so after the accident. The picture of my grandmother is on his desk there. I showed this to one of my grandchildren without telling her what was going on, and she very, very astute about it. She looked at it and said, "Why is he so sad?" And so I explained that to her. Okay, next picture, next slide. This is her headstone and the death certificate. The quote, "The reason firm, the temperate will, endurance, foresight, strength, and skill, a perfect woman, nobly planned, to war and to comfort and command." She was a Phantom of Delight, written in 1803 by William Wordsworth. I looked it up. I didn't know. We weren't sure where it came from. And then the next slide. So some of her grandchildren did get to Sterling after she died. That's me, sitting on the step there. I was the first grandchild born after she died, born in 1942. My parents' engagement was announced in the newspaper the same day as the announcement of her death and accident. I have a newspaper clipping. And I was the first grandchild born after she died and named for her. So I did get there, at least one grandchild, and I'm sure I have others did too.
Can I give you a break for a second and add a couple of things?
You can certainly add a couple of things, yes, thank you. I do want you to. I have some excerpts from letters of condolences, but you know what? I'll take a break. Go ahead, Sue.
Okay. This Sterling is called Old. We all called it Old Sterling, and our parents called it Old Sterling. And I think it was on Harrington Road where Bobby and Pat Turner lived. And it was there for a long, long time, and my father tried to buy it back, but somebody else had bought it then and torn it down. But I have a bunch of pictures of him at Old Sterling. And Sterling Farm was the name of our farm, which was where we had the vineyard. And it was quite a sore spot in my life when the farm was bought by somebody else and changed the name from Sterling Farm to Meredith Farm, because the name of the vineyard was Meredith, but the name of the farm was not Meredith Farm. And so I actually tried to fight it, but I was outgunned financially. And so if anybody wanted to know where the other Sterling Farm that's where it is. And also, after our grandfather died, he was buried in the cemetery in Winchester because that was sort of his origin. I don't know why he wanted. I think our great-great-grandfather was the original Charles McGill Smith, and he had been a surgeon in the Civil War. And so it had sort of previously been determined that my father would be buried over there. But then when my father died, he was buried at the Middleburg Cemetery, where the picture of Mary Turner's grave was, where you just read the quote from. And my mother, who was always a force to be reckoned with, wanted my father and Mary to be reunited. So she hired whoever needed to do this, and had my grandfather dug up from Winchester and moved back and buried in Middleburg so he could be with Mary.
That's where you belong.
And anybody who wants to go, who's interested in seeing that grave, it's straight behind the church. If you go behind the church, there's an old iron gate, and it goes in there. So I think it was very touching that finally they were reunited at the cemetery.
Yes. I'll read some excerpts from letters of condolences that were sent to my mother after her mother died. Your mother was a beautiful woman and so kindly in thought and deed. She must have been needed by the Lord of Paradise for his garden. She was so precious to so many and seemed to be so much needed. I've been thinking of how beautiful she was, both in character and looks. I was always very fond of your mother and knew what she meant to all of you. How precious are memories of those who are dear to us. Those who have the good fortune to know her can understand what a loss will mean to you and her other loved ones. I was always devoted to your mother, always remember her as one of the prettiest mothers I knew. In the Diocese of Louisiana, your tragic sorrow was called to the attention of our membership. A formal resolution of words would fail to convey our innermost feeling of sympathy for you and your family at this time of great sorrow. From Aunt Lucy Page Meredith, I know you loved her dearly. Once she was my little girl. after her mother's death, and she slept in my room with my children. As there were no other room in the Institute at the time, she was the loveliest little child I ever saw. She was baptized a perfect little cherub. And the last excerpt. My mother wrote this to my father. They were disengaged, and he had come to Montgomery, Alabama for an accident. Just remember her as you knew her, for she was at her very best just before she left for Virginia. We are all remarkably well. Father is showing what he's made of. He is wonderful. And I have not seen Archie break down yet. Charles and Cynthia are a wonderful comfort to us all. So, she had so many dreams for things that just cut short so fast in a second. So I wanted to do this for all the grandchildren and great-grandchildren born after she died, who never had a chance to know her. And she was a beautiful person. I heard about her my entire life, really. So I got the tears.
Well, it's understandable. Thank you so much, both of you. We really appreciate it, and I'll get the lights on and lunch is served.
Thank you.